I'm Emily, 28, and tonight I stand at the precipice of a truth I've long denied. For years, I poured my soul into my work, believing that dedication, talent, and sheer effort would pave my path to recognition. I was the one burning the midnight oil, the first to arrive, the last to leave. My desk was perpetually buried under blueprints and market analyses, each document a testament to my relentless pursuit of perfection. My colleagues, bless their hearts, often joked about my office sleeping bag, but I didn't mind. This project, Project Nightingale, was my magnum opus, a revolutionary AI-driven platform poised to redefine our industry. I nurtured it from a nascent idea scribbled on a napkin to a complex, fully functional system that promised to double our company's market share within a year. I sacrificed weekends, holidays, even my fledgling social life. Every line of code, every strategic pivot, every late-night troubleshooting session bore my fingerprint. I envisioned the launch, the applause, the quiet nod of approval from my boss, Mr. Harrison, a man whose stern exterior I mistook for discerning integrity. I saw myself, finally, stepping into the light, not just as an employee, but as a visionary. Little did I know that light would be stolen, and my dedication would be dismissed with a single, casual phrase. The day of the annual Innovation Awards arrived, a shimmering spectacle of industry giants and ambitious hopefuls. My heart hammered with a mix of nerves and exhilaration. Project Nightingale was slated to be unveiled, and I, Emily, its architect, was ready. Mr. Harrison, typically reserved, had an uncharacteristic gleam in his eye as he took the stage. He spoke of groundbreaking advancements, of vision, of the future of our company. He called it a new era, a phrase I'd crafted for our internal presentations. My pulse quickened. This was it. He then announced the Innovation of the Year award, the very one I'd dreamed of. But instead of my name, he called out Mark's. Mark, a new hire, barely 6 months into the company, who had contributed a few minor tweaks to the user interface, tweaks I had specifically approved. A wave of confusion washed over me, quickly followed by a cold, searing shock. I saw Mark stride confidently to the stage, shaking Mr. Harrison's hand, accepting the gleaming trophy. The spotlight, meant for me, bathed him in undeserved glory. Then came the words that twisted the knife in my gut. Mark's unique insights transformed Project Nightingale into the masterpiece it is today. Mr. Harrison declared, his voice booming through the ballroom. Emily here, he added, gesturing vaguely in my direction, provided valuable support. It was just a bonus. Just a bonus. My entire year, my dedication, my sleepless nights, reduced to a mere footnote, a bonus contribution to someone else's triumph. The applause, once a distant hum, now roared in my ears, mocking my silent devastation. I felt every eye in the room, not on me, but on the smiling imposter on stage. My smile, forced and brittle, felt like a mask. The air grew thick, suffocating. I gripped the armrests of my chair, fingernails digging into the plush fabric, grounding myself in the physical pain to distract from the emotional agony. This wasn't just about an award. It was about my identity, my worth, being stripped away in front of an entire industry. The applause eventually faded, and the glittering awards ceremony continued around me, a surreal blur of polite laughter and clinking glasses. I became an actress in my own silent tragedy, forcing a smile, nodding at meaningless small talk, and pretending that nothing had shattered inside. Every congratulations directed at Mark felt like a fresh cut. Every casual mention of Project Nightingale, a reminder of the credit I'd been denied. I saw Mr. Harrison chatting animatedly with industry bigwigs, basking in the reflected glow of my success, a success he had so effortlessly rebranded as someone else's. Mark, meanwhile, moved through the room with a newfound swagger, accepting accolades as if the lies he perpetuated were his undeniable truth. Later, at the obligatory after-party, the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and false congratulations. Colleagues approached me, some offering pitying glances, others oblivious. "Great work, Emily, on the support for Nightingale," they'd say. their words well-intentioned but inadvertently reinforcing the narrative that I was merely a helper, a background player. My replies were automated, my laughter hollow. I felt like a ghost, haunting a celebration that should have been mine. The food tasted like ash, the champagne like bitter tears. I watched Mark surrounded by admirers, casually discussing his vision for Project Nightingale, dissecting his challenges during its development. Each word was a dagger, twisting deeper into my already wounded spirit. When I finally escaped the suffocating atmosphere and returned to my silent apartment, the facade crumbled. The tears came, hot and furious, blurring the city lights outside my window. I crumpled to the floor, clutching the small, insignificant certificate of appreciation that Mr. Harrison's assistant had quietly handed me, a consolation prize for my obliterated dreams. The injustice was a physical ache, a knot in my stomach that refused to loosen. How could they? How could he? The questions reeled in my mind, echoing the emptiness in my heart. This wasn't just about an award, it was about the betrayal of trust, the calculated devaluation of my worth. The world kept spinning, oblivious to my shattered reality, and I was left alone with the crushing weight of unacknowledged pain. For days, a cold numbness enveloped me. I moved through my routine like a robot, working efficiently but without passion. My colleagues noticed, of course, their sympathetic glances a constant reminder of the injustice. "Are you okay, Emily?" they'd ask, and I'd offer a non-committal shrug, a forced smile. But beneath the surface, a fierce fire of indignation began to burn. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong, that Mark's sudden ascent was too seamless, too perfect. My first step was to scrutinize the project's documentation, the endless digital trails of commits and changes. Project Nightingale had been my life for over a year. I knew its every pulse, its every breath. I started with the public-facing repository, then delved into the more protected internal logs. What I found was a meticulously crafted illusion. My commits, my code, my architectural decisions were still there, undeniable proof of my work. But superimposed on them were layers of Mark's minor contributions, amplified, highlighted, made to appear far more significant than they were. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to the casual observer, but to me, it screamed manipulation. Mark hadn't just received the award. He had actively participated in fabricating the narrative that led to it. But then, the chilling truth began to emerge from unexpected corners. Sarah, a junior developer who often stayed late, confided in me, her voice barely a whisper. "Emily, I overheard Mark talking to Mr. Harrison the week before the awards," she revealed, her eyes wide with apprehension. "He was saying how he cleaned up some messy code in Nightingale, and that your part was just following instructions. I thought he was just joking. But now," her words hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just Mark. Mr. Harrison was complicit. The pieces started to fall into place. The sudden insistence on Mark reviewing all my recent code, the closed-door meetings between him and Mr. Harrison, the unusually effusive praise Mark received for trivial tasks, the casual dismissal of my long hours. This wasn't an oversight, a mistake, or even simple favoritism. It was a calculated, deliberate act of sabotage, orchestrated by the very man I had trusted, the man who had overseen my tireless work. The bonus comment, so dismissive in the moment, now replayed in my mind like a cruel taunt, revealing its true, sinister meaning. It was a coordinated effort to strip me of my achievement, to make me irrelevant. The realization was sickening, a betrayal that cut far deeper than just losing an award. It was a theft of my professional identity, carefully planned and brutally executed. The realization of their calculated deception didn't just sting. It ignited something fierce within me. The initial numbness gave way to a burning resolve. I had spent years being the diligent, quiet force behind the scenes, believing my work would speak for itself. But it hadn't. It had been silenced, twisted, and attributed to someone else. The tears had dried, replaced by a steely determination. I looked at my reflection in the dark window of my apartment, no longer seeing a defeated employee, but a woman wronged, a woman ready to fight for her truth. My first impulse was to confront them, to storm into Mr. Harrison's office and expose the lies. but years of strategic thinking, honed by countless project analyses, kicked in. Emotional outbursts wouldn't win this battle. Meticulous planning would. I remembered my father's quiet wisdom. Don't just react, Emily. Respond with purpose. This wasn't just about an award anymore. It was about reclaiming my narrative, my reputation, my very identity that had been so cruelly dismissed as just a bonus. The decision formed slowly, crystallizing into an unshakable resolve. I wouldn't just expose them. I would dismantle their carefully constructed lies piece by piece. This wouldn't be a vengeful explosion, but a precise, surgical strike. I would use the very tools they underestimated, my intelligence, my meticulousness, my understanding of the system, against them. The game had changed. They thought they had humbled me, that I would accept my diminished role. They were wrong. They had underestimated the quiet woman who, for years, had built empires from nothing but code and determination. The next move was mine, and it would be executed with the same precision I applied to Project Nightingale, ensuring a far more impactful outcome than any stolen award. The days that followed were a blur of meticulous preparation, executed with the precision of a master chess player. I continued to present a facade of calm, unbothered professionalism at the office. I smiled, I nodded, I even congratulated Mark on his well-deserved award, a bitter taste in my mouth with each forced word. But behind the scenes, my quiet war room hummed with silent activity. First, I secured all my digital footprints. Every line of code I'd written for Project Nightingale, every design document, every email exchange was meticulously backed up and cross-referenced. I knew the system inside out, having built it. This allowed me to access hidden logs and less obvious data trails that clearly documented my primary authorship and Mark's minimal, often superficial contributions. I even found a cached version of an early internal presentation slide where my name was prominently displayed as the lead innovator, a slide that had mysteriously vanished from current company records. Next, I reached out to trusted allies, not with accusations, but with careful, leading questions. Sarah, the junior developer, was a key confidant. I subtly encouraged her to keep notes, to document any unusual conversations or directives, especially regarding Project Nightingale or Mark's supposed involvement. Her innocent observations, once dismissed, now held critical weight. I also reconnected with a former colleague, David, now a data forensics expert, framing my request as a hypothetical case study for a friend. He helped me verify the integrity of my extracted data, ensuring it would stand up to scrutiny. I compiled a comprehensive timeline, cross-referencing every meeting, every deliverable, every performance review related to the project. This wasn't about emotion. It was about irrefutable facts. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the foundation of my counter-narrative, building a case that would be impossible to deny. I worked late into the night, but these weren't the draining, unappreciated hours of before. These were hours fueled by purpose, by the cold, exhilarating promise of justice. Every discreet click, every encrypted file, every quiet conversation was a step towards reclaiming what was rightfully mine. They thought I was defeated. They had no idea I was simply recalibrating, preparing for a launch far more impactful than any award ceremony. The moment arrived precisely as I'd orchestrated, not in a private office where my words could be dismissed, but during the quarterly all-hands meeting, a mandatory gathering where every employee, from the newest intern to the most seasoned executive, was present. Mr. Harrison stood at the podium presenting the success metrics of Project Nightingale, basking in the glow of the data that was, in fact, mine. Mark sat beside him, nodding sagely, embodying the lie. I waited until the Q&A session began, my heart a steady drum against my ribs. I raised my hand, my voice calm and clear when called upon. Mr. Harrison, Mark, I began, the results of Project Nightingale are indeed impressive, and as someone deeply involved in its inception and core development, I have a few observations to share. A ripple went through the room. Mr. Harrison's smile faltered, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Specifically, I continued, my gaze sweeping across the room, I'd like to address the recent Innovation of the Year award for Project Nightingale. While Mark's contributions to the user interface were, as Mr. Harrison stated, a bonus, I believe the full scope of the project's development deserves to be acknowledged. I then, with practiced ease, projected a screen onto the large monitors behind them. It wasn't the usual presentation slide. It was a live, scrolling display of Project Nightingale's foundational code, annotated with time-stamped entries, each highlighting my name, my unique developer ID, and the sheer volume of my commits, the irrefutable digital fingerprint of true authorship. Then, I overlaid it with a second data stream, a microscopic view of Mark's contributions, visually demonstrating their minimal impact against the vastness of my work. The room fell silent. You could feel the collective gasp. Faces in the audience, once placid, contorted into expressions of confusion, then dawning realization. Mark's confident smirk vanished, replaced by a ghastly pallor. Mr. Harrison, his face now a mask of pure shock, attempted to interject. "Emily, this isn't the appropriate forum." "On the contrary, Mr. Harrison," I cut in, my voice gaining strength. "Transparency and integrity are always appropriate, especially when discussing an innovation award for a project that redefined our company's future, and especially when discussing the true architects behind that innovation." I then displayed the cached early presentation slide, proudly bearing my name as lead, followed by the leaked audio recording of Mark discussing cleaning up messy code and my role as following instructions. Sarah's whispered account now had damning, undeniable audio. The truth, meticulously uncovered, was now laid bare for everyone to see. The air crackled with tension, the silence deafening, punctuated only by the soft hum of the projectors. This wasn't just a presentation. It was an unmasking, a public reckoning years in the making. The stolen glory was about to collapse under the weight of its own deception. The silence that followed my revelation was thicker than any I had ever experienced in that boardroom. It wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum, sucking all the air out of the room. Mr. Harrison's face, usually a study in controlled composure, had drained of all color, leaving him looking ashen and utterly bewildered. His eyes, fixed on the damning data on the screen, darted nervously between me and the now horrified faces in the audience. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out, only a faint gurgling noise as if his throat had suddenly constricted. The man who had so confidently declared my work just a bonus was utterly speechless, his authority visibly crumbling before everyone's eyes. Mark, seated beside him, was a picture of abject terror. His previous swagger had completely evaporated, replaced by a desperate, trapped look. His eyes darted around, searching for an escape, for a single friendly face, but found none. I saw him clench his fists under the table, his knuckles white. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, betraying his inner turmoil. He tried to meet my gaze for a fleeting second, but his eyes quickly dropped, unable to hold the weight of his guilt. The arrogance he'd displayed just moments before had been replaced by a raw, undeniable shame. But the most compelling reactions came from the audience. Gasps rippled through the rows. Whispers erupted, quickly escalating into a low, incredulous murmur. I saw heads turn, eyes widen, as colleagues openly exchanged shocked glances. Sarah, the junior developer who had given me the crucial tip, looked at me with a mix of awe and fear, her hand clamped over her mouth. Employees who had always accepted Mr. Harrison's word as gospel now looked at him with questioning, even accusing expressions. The company's carefully curated image of integrity and fair play was shattering in real time, replaced by a stark, undeniable truth of manipulation. Board members, usually stoic and unreadable, leaned forward, their expressions a mixture of outrage and urgent concern. The atmosphere, once charged with anticipation for the meeting's end, was now thick with the palpable tension of a scandal unfolding. The truth, once a quiet whisper, had roared, leaving a trail of disbelief and anger in its wake. The aftermath of the revelation was swift and merciless, a domino effect that sent ripples through the entire company. Mr. Harrison, the once unassailable executive, found himself under immediate and intense scrutiny. The board, whose faces had been a mixture of shock and outrage just moments before, convened an emergency session even before the all-hands meeting officially ended. Whispers of an internal investigation, then a formal review, began to circulate within hours. Within 24 hours, an official company announcement cited unethical conduct and misrepresentation of project leadership as the reason for Mr. Harrison's immediate suspension, pending further investigation. The language was carefully corporate, but the message was clear. His reign, built on a foundation of deceit, was over. Mark's fall was even more precipitous. Humiliated and exposed in front of his peers, he became an instant pariah. His phone buzzed relentlessly with calls he dared not answer. I saw him slinking out of the office later that day, his shoulders slumped, avoiding all eye contact. The following morning, an email, terse and to the point, announced his resignation for personal reasons, a thinly veiled dismissal. The very innovation he had claimed as his own was now a brand that tainted his name, making him unemployable in our close-knit industry. The whispers followed him everywhere, and the industry, notoriously unforgiving of such ethical lapses, would ensure he remained in the professional wilderness. The ripple effect didn't stop there. Other employees who had been subtly sidelined or had their ideas appropriated by Mr. Harrison or his inner circle now felt emboldened. Stories, once whispered in hushed tones, began to surface, detailing a pattern of credit theft and manipulation that had long festered beneath the company's polished exterior. The incident sparked a much-needed internal reckoning, forcing management to address a culture where ambition had overshadowed integrity. For me, witnessing their downfall wasn't about vindictive pleasure, but a quiet satisfaction that justice, though delayed, had finally arrived. The lies they had woven to elevate themselves had, in the end, become the very threads that unraveled their careers. Just when I thought the storm had settled and I could finally begin to heal in peace, an unexpected wave of recognition began to crash upon me. Not from within the company walls, but from the vast, interconnected world outside. It started subtly, a LinkedIn message from an old university professor commending my bravery and integrity in the face of corporate politics. Then, an email from a former intern now working at a prominent tech magazine asking for an interview about the true story behind Project Nightingale. The first article hit the digital wire, not focusing on the scandal itself, but on the innovation of Project Nightingale and the resilience of its true creator. It highlighted the technical brilliance, the groundbreaking algorithms, the sheer scale of the platform, all attributed unequivocally to me. My name, Emily, was finally linked to the work I had poured my soul into. The article subtly referenced internal challenges that had briefly obscured the project's true authorship, but the focus remained firmly on the ingenuity and vision of its lead developer. Then came the flood. Other industry publications picked up the story, dissecting the technical marvel of Nightingale and my innovative approach. My phone, once filled with notifications of company meetings, now buzzed with interview requests, invitations to speak at tech conferences, and even inquiries from venture capitalists eager to back the visionary behind the next big thing. My name was no longer Emily, valuable support, but Emily, the brain behind Project Nightingale. The irony was not lost on me. The very act of reclaiming my narrative, of fighting for recognition, had opened doors I never knew existed. My integrity, once seen as a weakness by those who sought to exploit it, had become my strongest asset. The dismissal of my work as just a bonus had inadvertently launched me into the spotlight, transforming an act of profound betrayal into a powerful catalyst for unexpected success. This external validation, untainted by internal politics or personal agendas, was the purest form of recognition, a testament to the fact that true talent, like light, cannot be hidden forever. The external recognition wasn't just a fleeting moment of vindication. It was the launchpad for a new trajectory. The invitations to speak at conferences multiplied, each platform an opportunity to share my story, not just of the betrayal, but of the innovation itself and the unwavering belief in one's own worth. I spoke with a newfound confidence, my voice resonating with authenticity. I was no longer speaking for validation, but from a place of hard-won truth. The venture capitalists who had reached out quickly followed through. They saw beyond the corporate drama, recognizing the raw talent and the groundbreaking potential of Project Nightingale. Offers poured in, not for a mere employee, but for a co-founder, a visionary. I carefully considered each proposal, driven not by a desire for revenge, but by a clear vision for building something truly impactful and ethical. I eventually accepted an offer that allowed me to lead the development of Project Nightingale, now spun off into its own independent entity. My new company was built on principles of transparency, integrity, and fair recognition, the very values that had been trampled upon in my previous role. My team was handpicked, comprising not just brilliant minds, but individuals who shared my commitment to an ethical work environment. Sarah, the junior developer who had bravely come forward, was one of my first hires, thriving in an atmosphere where her contributions were truly valued. David, the data forensics expert, became a key advisor, ensuring our internal processes were beyond reproach. We refined Project Nightingale, expanding its capabilities, and within a year, it wasn't just doubling market share, it was quadrupling it. The industry watched, astonished by our rapid ascent. My face, once subtly erased from the narrative, now graced the covers of tech magazines, not as a victim, but as a leader, an innovator, a force to be reckoned with. This was success on my terms, unburdened by stolen credit or public humiliation, built on a foundation of integrity and undeniable achievement. My journey, from the quiet dedication behind Project Nightingale to the public humiliation and subsequent triumph, taught me a truth far more valuable than any award or promotion. Your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it, but by the courage you find to honor it yourself. The bonus comment, intended to diminish me, ultimately became the catalyst for my liberation. It forced me to confront a fundamental question: would I continue to seek external validation, or would I define my own success? The path was not easy. There were moments of doubt, fear, and immense anger. But with each step I took to reclaim my narrative, with every piece of evidence I meticulously gathered, I grew stronger. I learned that true strength isn't just in fighting the hardest, but in knowing when to walk away from what devalues you, and when to stand firm for what you believe in. My story is a testament to the power of integrity, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. It's a reminder that authenticity is a more powerful currency than any accolade, and that honesty, even when painful, ultimately leads to freedom. Today, as I look at my thriving company, built on principles I hold dear, I see more than just a successful business. I see a monument to resilience, a testament to the idea that even the most profound betrayals can be transformed into the greatest turning points. So, to anyone out there feeling unseen, unappreciated, or unjustly sidelined, your dignity is never for sale. Your talent is your own, and your voice, when raised with truth and conviction, has the power to change everything. Don't settle for being a bonus in someone else's story. Write your own.